So, 2.5 weeks ago, I stumbled onto something. And I want to be honest with you, I didn't expect it to hit the way it did. I've been around technology my whole career. I'm a composer, I score television, movies, trailers, I run a business, I'm a dad, and I thought I had a pretty decent handle on AI. I mean, I was using it, I felt reasonably informed, and then I found OpenClaw. Within about 48 hours, I had bought a Mac Mini and started setting everything up. For those of you who don't know, OpenClaw is an open source interface for interacting with AI models. Specifically, Anthropic's Claude is what they recommend the most. It runs locally on your machine, and I know that sentence might mean nothing to you yet, but stay with me, because by the end of this video, it's going to mean a lot. What immediately intrigued me wasn't just the tool itself, it was the community around it. There's this incredibly engaged, generous group of people on X and in the OpenClaw Discord who are genuinely excited to share what they're building, what they're learning, and where this is all going. I haven't seen a community like this in a long time. It reminded me of the early days of something truly new. You know, the feeling I had when I first started playing jazz and when I first started composing. And that feeling, that electricity, that's what made me buy the Mac Mini. I wanted in. Now, I'm not going to pretend the last 2.5 weeks have been smooth sailing. There's been a real learning curve here, and I think it's important to be honest about that, especially for this audience, because a lot of what we talk about on this podcast is helping you navigate this world without feeling lost. So let me just walk you through some of what I've had to get my head around. The first thing is API usage. When you're running AI through a platform like OpenClaw, you're often connecting directly to the model providers, Anthropic in this case, or you could do OpenAI, Google's Gemini, whatever. You get to choose any of them. And you do it through what's called an API, an application programming interface. Basically, it's a direct line to the AI. And that line, it costs money. Every time you send a message, you're spending what are called tokens, little units that represent chunks of text. And the more you converse, the more tokens you burn. And the bill can add up faster than you'd expect. I went from thinking this would be a modest monthly expense to having a real conversation with myself about cost optimization. Then there's this concept of the context window. Think of it like the AI's working memory. It can only hold so much at once. And when a conversation gets long enough, it starts to forget what was said earlier. There's a process called compaction that tries to summarize and compress older parts of the conversation to keep things manageable. Understanding this changed how I think about interacting with AI entirely. I actually stopped using it for a couple days because I was freaked out and I was like, I've got to try to do this some other way. How can I get it to be completely free? But I went back to it because it's not just a chatbot. It has real constraints, real architecture. I also started going deep on local models versus frontier models. The major frontier models, by the way, you have Anthropic's Claude, you've got OpenAI, GPT, you've got Gemini. They're enormous and extraordinarily capable, and they live in the cloud. Local models are smaller. They run right on your machine, no internet required, no per token cost, but the trade-off is capability. That gap is closing fast though, and for certain tasks, a local model is more than enough. So learning to route the right task to the right model is becoming a really important skill. And then there's the security side of things. Prompt injection, for instance. This is where malicious code, content, direction, they try to hack into the AI's behavior. They hijack the AI's behavior by embedding hidden instructions in something it reads. It can be like an email. It can be something you copy paste. You can tell it to go check out a website for you. So you have to have a very smart AI to be able to handle all this. I know it sounds abstract until you realize your AI might be browsing the web, reading emails, or processing documents on your behalf. And then suddenly security isn't theoretical. It is personal. So what makes all of this even more intense is the pace of releases right now. We just saw Opus 4.6 and Sonnet 4.6 drop from Anthropic. There's Kimi making waves, Minimax turning heads. The volume of AI discussion on X has become almost overwhelming. There are days where every other post is someone announcing a new model, a new benchmark, a new capability. It can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose. But here's what I've landed on. You don't need to track every release. What you need is to understand the landscape well enough that when something genuinely significant happens, you recognize it. And right now, a lot of genuinely significant things are happening. So what this means for me. So here's where it gets really interesting, at least personally speaking. I'm a composer. I score television shows, movies, trailers, media, and anything basically that I can write music for. I run a music production company, and I started asking myself, okay, how does any of this actually help me? Because honestly speaking, in the beginning, it felt exciting, but also a little abstract. Like, yes, AI is amazing, but what does it actually do for my actual life? And then something shifted. I started noticing how many things I do on a regular basis that are essentially repetitive, structured, and rule-based. The kind of tasks that have a pattern, where if you described the pattern clearly enough to someone, they could do it for you. Things like organizing music cues, formatting documents, parsing data, EDLs, preparing briefs. And I realized those aren't things that require my creative brain. They're things that consume my creative brain's time. AI doesn't just save time, it returns time. And for a composer, for a parent, for a business owner, that's enormous. So I started building what I can only describe as personal systems, little agents that handle routine tasks so I can focus on the work that actually requires my attention. And the more I build, the more I see. It's like a door opened and behind it is this entire hallway of other doors. What this means for parents. Now, here's the part I really want you to hear, especially if you're a parent listening to this. One of the most exciting realizations I've had in the last 2.5 weeks is this: coding no longer holds you back. For the last decade, if you wanted to build an app or a tool or a custom system, you either had to learn to code or hire someone who could. That was the wall. And for most parents, that wall was real. That wall is coming down now. With tools like OpenClaw and modern AI models, you can describe what you want in plain English, and the AI will help you build it. Not perfectly every time, not without some learning, but the barrier has fundamentally changed. Let me give you an example. This stopped me in my tracks. There's a mother in the OpenClaw community who homeschools her children. She wanted a video player for her kids, but she didn't want them anywhere near YouTube's recommendation algorithm. She didn't want the platform suggesting content she hadn't approved, so she built her own YouTube app, a simple interface where her kids can play, pause, and scroll through a curated playlist she created, and that's it. No suggested videos, no rabbit holes, no algorithm. She built that, a homeschooling mom, not a developer. And that, to me, is the story. That is what is actually happening right now. We are entering an era where parents can build the tools they actually want for their families, where you don't have to accept the defaults, where you can say, this is not good enough for my kids, and then go build something better. That creativity, that agency, is now available to all of us. So, 2.5 weeks, a Mac Mini, a community full of people just as excited and confused and energized as I am, and a growing sense that we are right at the beginning of something that is going to touch every part of our lives. How we work, how we parent, how we create. I don't have all the answers. I'm learning alongside you, but I think that's exactly why I wanted to make this video, because the learning is the thing. And the more of us who are in it together, the better off we're all going to be. Thanks for being here. We'll talk soon.